Before you call me a monster, save your energy. Everyone already did. The police did. The judge did. My ex-husband did. Half my family did. My oldest daughter definitely did. And she did it with that cold, polished expression she has worn since she was a child and realized feelings are just liabilities with mascara on them. So no, you are not early to the party. I know how this sounds. I know how it looks. I know that if you strip this down to the ugliest bones, it becomes a very simple sentence. A mother stole money from one daughter and gave it to the other. That is the version people love because people are obsessed with clean villains. It saves them from having to think too hard. It lets them feel righteous with minimal effort. They hear mother stole from daughter, and immediately start foaming at the mouth like morality is a sport and they finally got season tickets. Fine. Here is the part they never want to hear. Families are not courts of law until someone decides they are. Before that, they are emotional economies. Years of sacrifice, resentment, favoritism, debt, guilt, old wounds, uneven love, unspoken expectations, and the kind of history no bank statement can summarize. Parents pour into children for years and then one day everyone acts shocked when the ledger turns ugly. That is what this was. An ugly ledger. And yes, I crossed a line. I know that now. The law made sure I knew it in detail. But people keep talking about that line like it appeared in a vacuum, bright red and impossible to miss. Instead of being the endpoint of years of smaller lines everyone let harden into normal. My oldest daughter, Tessa, has always been the kind of person the outside world adores. Quiet. Controlled. Competent. The sort of girl teachers describe as mature for her age. Which sounds like praise until you realize it usually means a child learned far too early that no one is coming, so she may as well become her own parent and look impressive doing it. She is in finance now because of course she is. She wears expensive coats that pretend not to be expensive. She orders wine by name instead of pointing at the menu. She has a careful apartment, a careful face, careful savings, careful words. Everything about Tessa says one thing. You will not catch me needing you. People worship that in a woman. They call it strength. My younger daughter, Chloe, is the kind of girl those same people dismiss in one sentence and then spend years secretly preferring in private because she still knows how to be warm. She is softer. Trusting. Emotional. Messier, yes. She cries when things fall apart, which apparently is now a moral failure in addition to an inconvenience. She does not glide through life looking composed. She stumbles. She panics. She believes people when they say, "Don't worry, I've got you." Which is maybe her worst quality because the world treats hopeful women like unlocked cars. So if you want the internet version of this family, here it is. Tessa was the good one. Chloe was the problem. I was the idiot who kept loving them like context mattered. What people really mean, of course, is that Tessa is easier to respect. Success always is. A polished daughter makes everyone feel wise for noticing her. A struggling daughter makes everyone start handing out lectures like they are gift cards. And that was the beginning of the rot. Not greed. Need. Or at least that is the prettier word I use for it. If you ask Tessa where this all began, she would probably say it started with theft. Or with betrayal. Or with me walking into her life only when I wanted something. She likes clean beginnings because clean beginnings make clean endings. If you ask me, it started long before that. It started with a divorce. Daniel and I split when Tessa was 7. That age matters because 7 is old enough to remember the sound of doors closing but too young to understand why adults keep calling each other complicated, when what they mean is cruel in ways polite company won't name. Daniel left the marriage the way some men leave restaurants. Calm voice, exact payment, no mess on the table, and somehow everyone still compliments him on being so reasonable. He got to be the stable one, the calm one, the one who didn't want conflict. And I got to be the woman left behind with bills, a child, a dismantled life, and a personality suddenly rebranded as difficult because I had the nerve to not be graceful while drowning. There is no medal for the parent who stays and panics. There is certainly no one applauding the mother who survives badly. I met Ron 2 years later. People have their opinions about that too. Everyone always does. But when you are lonely and tired and your life feels like a cracked bowl, you do not fall in love the way people in movies do. You grab the first thing that feels solid enough to stop the leaking. Ron was solid. He was decisive, practical, blunt in a way that felt like strength when I no longer had energy for nuance. He made choices quickly. He did not wallow. He did not sit there asking how every feeling might affect everyone in a 10-mile radius. At the time that felt like relief. Then Chloe was born, and for the first time in years my life felt whole in one room. That is an ugly sentence too, isn't it? I know how it sounds. Like I am saying my life only became complete once the second child arrived. Like Tessa became background scenery the moment there was a new baby to love. That is not how it felt at the time. At the time it felt like survival triage. Chloe was tiny. Ron was working. Money was tight. I was stretched thin in 12 different directions. And Tessa had already developed that watchful little stillness that made me feel judged before she was old enough to know what judgment even was. That was one of the hardest things about Tessa as a child. She did not melt when you failed her. She cataloged. She did not scream. She remembered. There is something very unnerving about a quiet child who notices everything. Loud hurt is messy, but at least it moves through the room and out the door. Quiet hurt sits down, folds its hands, and starts growing bones. I miss things. Of course I did. School events. Tiny details. A birthday theme she cared about more than I realized. Parent meeting I should have written down. A field trip form. A haircut disaster that turned into tears. The kind of small failures that, if you stack enough of them, become a childhood story someone tells about you 20 years later while strangers on the internet call you a narcissist. They might not even be wrong. But at the time it felt like this. Chloe was little, Ron needed me, bills were due, Tessa was old enough to understand. That phrase should be engraved on the gravestones of bad mothers everywhere. She was old enough to understand. Translation. I needed her to need less because I had nothing left to give. Then Daniel offered to take Tessa full time. People love that detail because they can file everything neatly after it. There was the moment. The mother chose the new family. The father rescued the daughter. End scene. Life is ruder than that. No one rescued anyone. Daniel did not sweep in like a heroic single father smelling emotional neglect from miles away. He offered because he had the stability I did not, and because he knew Tessa was already halfway packed in spirit. And God help me. I said yes because when you are drowning, a hand that lifts one weight from your back feels like mercy even when the weight is your own child. I should have fought. I know. You can all stop composing the comment. I should have fought harder. I should have begged. I should have kept her. I should have chosen differently. But Tessa did not cry. That is the part nobody understands when they judge me. She did not cling. She did not scream. She did not ask me not to let her go. She packed. Like she had been waiting for someone to make it official. Do you know what that does to a mother? To stand there while your child organizes her things with the emotional efficiency of someone checking out of a hotel? Begging would have hurt less. After that, distance stopped being a phase and hardened into identity. Tessa moved through Daniel's world and thrived. Better schools. Better structure. Better everything, really. She became sharper, more self-contained. More polite in that deadly way that isn't warmth at all but a social weapon. Holidays felt negotiated. Visits felt formal. Every year she seemed less like my daughter, and more like a very successful guest who knew too much about me. Meanwhile, Chloe grew up in the chaos that was left. And yes, before anyone says it, I know that sentence sounds like I am romanticizing one child and excusing another. That is because I probably was. Favoritism does not arrive with a trumpet. It grows in the gap between the child who still reaches for you and the child who learned not to. Chloe was never easy, but she was reachable. She came to me with everything, friend drama, grade panic, money stress, bad decisions, worse men, all of it. She cried openly. She forgave quickly. She still thought I could fix things. Do you know how addictive that is after raising a child who no longer asks for anything? Tessa built a life without me. Chloe still made me feel necessary. That difference matters more than anyone wants to admit. By the time Chloe was in college, every phone call felt expensive. Rent, deposits, textbooks, parking tickets, broken phones, roommates from hell, unsafe buildings with locks that barely latched and landlords who treated young women like vending machines that leaked money when kicked hard enough. Every crisis sounded small when described by someone else and devastating when heard through your own daughter's tears. Mom, I can't stay here. Mom, the lease is up in 2 weeks. Mom, I don't know what to do. Mom, I'm trying. That last one got me every time. Because she was trying. Maybe not as elegantly as Tessa would have. Maybe not with spreadsheets and caution and 10-year plans. But trying all the same. And every time Chloe called, I thought about Tessa. Not because I wanted to punish her. Not then. Because I could not stop thinking about the math of it. One daughter drowning in small humiliations. One daughter floating on compound interest. One daughter panicking over rent. One daughter saving for a house. One daughter still vulnerable to the world. One daughter already armored against it. And yes, I know what you are thinking. That Tessa's success did not create Chloe's struggle. That one daughter's prudence is not the other daughter's piggy bank. That adulthood means consequences. Trust me, I have heard every version of that speech. Tessa practically made it her religion. But family destroys the clean lines between mine and yours long before lawyers arrive to redraw them. You know how some sentences walk into your head, take off their coat, and refuse to leave? That was one of them. Maybe she needs to be reminded. A week later, Tessa invited me over for coffee. That matters because people love saying I slithered into her life like a scammer with lipstick on. The truth is always less cinematic and more pathetic. She invited me. For coffee. In her apartment. Like there was still enough softness left somewhere for one normal afternoon between mother and daughter. Her place was exactly what you would expect if you have ever met a woman who survived by turning discipline into decor. White walls. Clean counters. Soft neutral furniture. Nothing out of place. Not a single object that looked impulsive. It was like stepping inside a person who wanted evidence she could control something. We made small talk. Work. Traffic. The city. Weather. Surface things. The kind of conversation people have when history is sitting at the table too but no one wants to introduce it. Then she went to the kitchen to make coffee. Her phone was on the counter. Lit up. Unlocked. Banking app open. I wish I could tell you I looked away. That I chose dignity. That some maternal instinct finally woke up and slapped my hand back to my side. I did not. Picked it up. Not because I had already decided to steal from her. I need that on the record, if only because it is true. I picked it up because I wanted to know. Because Tessa kept her life wrapped so tightly in privacy and competence that every scrap of unguarded truth felt forbidden. Because I was tired of guessing whether she could help Chloe. Because some part of me had already grown angry enough to feel entitled to answers. The numbers on that screen made my heart kick. Savings. Checking. An investment account. Transfer history. Balance is so far beyond what I had expected that for one hot stupid second I felt insulted. Not because she had it. Because she had it and moved through the world like we were all supposed to act as though that meant nothing. There it was, a house fund. Years of discipline. A future in neat little digits. Enough for a down payment. Enough to secure Chloe somewhere safe for a long time. Enough to change the temperature of one daughter's life without even seriously cooling the others. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. Then I sat down and accepted the coffee she handed me like I had not just crossed a threshold no decent mother should even approach. For the next few days I told myself I had only looked. Looking became thinking. Thinking became rehearsing. Rehearsing became dinner. Called Tessa and said I missed her. That part was not a lie. Missing someone and resenting them are not opposite emotions. They live together all the time. Ask any mother with a daughter who grew up too well without her. She agreed to dinner, though I could hear the caution in her voice. Tessa always sounds like she is speaking through a chain lock when it comes to me. I made sure Ron and Chloe came too. No, it was not accidental. Yes, I wanted witnesses. No, I did not want bonding. I wanted information, and I wanted the whole thing staged under the warm lighting of family. At the restaurant I kept the tone light. Work. Travel. Housing market. Rent. Interest rates. Chloe complained, truthfully, about what safe apartments were going for near campus. Ron made jokes in that mild, ordinary way men do when they want to move a conversation toward money without looking like they are moving it there. I praised Tessa's discipline. Her planning. Her success. I watched her carefully. People reveal more when they think they are being admired than when they think they are being interrogated. By the end of the meal I knew what I needed to know. Tessa confirmed she had been saving for a house for years. She mentioned casually a work trip overseas. Almost a week. Spotty access at times. Bad timing if something urgent came up. I remember nodding at the table while something in me clicked into place with a sound I felt more than heard. Not a plan. A permission slip. If I asked she would say no. I knew that. Tessa has one of those moral frameworks that sounds noble right up until it is your emergency standing on the wrong side of it. She believes in boundaries the way religious people believe in fire. She would have called it theft before I finished explaining. She would have said Chloe needed to learn. She would have said adulthood means consequences. She would have said she loved her sister but could not bankroll irresponsibility. And maybe she would have been right. But rightness is a luxury when someone you love is crying into the phone because the world is about to hand her another cheap lesson in vulnerability. So I stopped thinking of it as asking. I started thinking of it as correcting an imbalance. That is how people like me do terrible things. Not by cackling into the night. By polishing the logic until it reflects back something almost noble. The morning after Tessa left the country, I sat at my kitchen table with coffee gone cold and the details I should not have remembered but did. Familiar patterns. Fragments. Access points. The pieces of Tessa's life she never imagined I would test because decent mothers do not test those things. I wish I could tell you there was some dramatic barrier. Some movie-worthy obstacle that might have jolted me back into myself. There was not. That may be the most nauseating part of the whole story. Once I was in, the transfers were almost insultingly easy. Screen after screen. Confirmation after confirmation. My hands shook so badly I had to re-enter an amount once because I mistyped it. My pulse felt visible. My skin went cold. But underneath the panic was something steadier than fear. Relief. Not because I was taking from Tessa. Because I was finally giving Chloe the kind of start she never seemed to get on her own. By the time I finished, I felt like I was going to be sick. And triumphant. Those two feelings living together should have been a warning. Instead, I treated it like proof of sacrifice. That is the thing no one ever tells you about entitlement. From the inside, it can feel almost holy. Some of the money went almost immediately towards securing an apartment in Chloe's name. Good building. Better neighborhood. Secure entry. A place with enough space and enough safety that she could finally stop living like every month was a countdown to another disaster. When I told her, she burst into tears. Not suspicious tears. Grateful tears. Mom, how? Don't worry about that. Oh my God, Mom. I handled it. That sentence tasted better than it should have. I handled it. I sounded capable. Resourceful. Necessary. All the things Tessa had made herself without me. For 3 days, I let myself believe I had solved something. Then Tessa came home early. Ron opened the door, looked at her face, and I knew instantly the performance was over. Tessa walked straight past him. No hello. No small talk. Still in her coat, phone in hand, expression so tight it looked cut from glass. She found me in the living room and stopped right in front of me. What are you doing here? I said, because panic always reaches for stupidity first. She held up her phone. Tell me I'm wrong. Transfer confirmations. Dates. Amounts. My name. My account. There are moments when you can feel a lie rise to your mouth before you choose it. Like reflex. Like muscle memory. Mine came out flat and fast. I don't know what you're talking about. Tessa's face changed. Not into surprise because I think surprise requires some leftover faith. It changed into disgust. Don't do that, she said quietly. Don't make me stand here and listen to you lie. And something in me, instead of breaking, hardened. That is the truth I hate. I did not collapse into remorse. I got angry. Because in that moment, being looked at like a criminal by my own daughter felt more unbearable than having committed the crime. Chloe needed help, I said. Silence. Then Tessa gave one sharp, unbelieving laugh. You emptied my house fund. You have a good job, I snapped. You can build it back. Even now, I can see the exact second that sentence rearranged her face. Not because she suddenly realized I had done it. Because she suddenly realized I meant it. She is your sister, I kept going, because once people like me hear our own logic out loud, we mistake persistence for moral clarity. She needed stability. She needed a real shot. You're already established. You have savings. Family helps family. No, Tessa said. Family asks. Thieves take. Ron chose that exact moment to step into the room, proving once again that men can smell the worst possible timing from blocks away, and still walk right toward it. It's not like it's gone forever, he said. Tessa looked from him to me, and I watched understanding settle over her like frost. Not confusion. Not grief. Recognition. She realized this had not been impulsive. Not a panic move. Not a momentary lapse. It had been justified. Planned. Backed. Defended. Maybe even blessed. She asked for every cent back immediately. I told her we would work it out once Chloe was secure. That sentence alone should have gotten me slapped. Instead, Tessa went very still. Then she said, I'm calling the police. That was the first moment I felt real fear. Not because I thought I had gone too far. Because I could not believe she would do something so public. You would do that to your own mother? I asked. She stared at me like she was looking at a dead animal in the road. You should have thought about family before you robbed me. Then she left. I told myself she was bluffing. Because what kind of daughter calls the police on her mother over money, right? That is what I kept saying to myself. Not what kind of mother steals from her daughter. Funny how selective outrage gets when you are cornered. By that evening the bank had called. By the next day an investigator had. Accounts were flagged. Questions started coming from people who did not care about words like fairness, sacrifice, emotional context, maternal desperation, or family complexity. They wanted times, methods, access records, authorization. They spoke in facts, which is very inconvenient when your entire defense is built out of feelings wearing respectable clothes. I denied it first. Of course I did. What else was I supposed to do? Greet the investigator with tea and a confession? I said there had to be some mistake. I said maybe Tessa had authorized something and regretted it. I said I would need to see documentation. I said I did not know what she was talking about. Once the paper trail made that pathetic, I pivoted. It was a family matter. It was temporary. It was effectively a loan. I intended to repay it. No one was permanently harmed. Those words sounded thin even to me, like trying to cover a bullet hole with a coupon. I called Tessa again and again. First I pleaded. Tessa, pick up. We can discuss this privately. You are overreacting. This does not need to become a scandal. Then I shifted to righteous. I am your mother. You do not humiliate family like this. I did what I had to do. You have no idea what Chloe has been dealing with. Then I moved into ugly. That is where the truth usually lives. One night, after too much wine and a long argument with Ron about whether she would really go through with it, I left Tessa a voicemail calling her cold, arrogant, selfish, and exactly like Daniel. I told her she had always loved being the good one more than being a daughter. I told her she would regret tearing this family apart over money she could replace. That message would later be played in court. For now it just sat in her inbox like a lit match. That word again. Humiliating. Notice how often people are more offended by consequences than by the thing that caused them. Then Daniel sent an email. One email. Mass recipients. Bank screenshots. Transfer dates. Amounts. A timeline. And because God has a sense of irony, excerpts from my own voicemails. Nothing destroys a self-serving narrative faster than documentation arranged by a calm man everyone already thinks is reasonable. After that, the family temperature changed overnight. Not everyone turned on me. Some people never do, no matter what. There are relatives who will defend a mother over a corpse if the family tree is close enough. But enough people backed away that I could feel it. The old reflexive sympathy started drying up. The calls got shorter. The silences got longer. Even Marjorie sounded less convinced. That was when fear changed shape. Before I had been afraid of legal trouble. Now I was afraid of being seen clearly. That is worse. Court, when it finally came, was smaller than I expected and colder than I deserved. I dressed carefully. Navy suit. Minimal makeup. Understated earrings. Nothing flashy. Nothing that could be interpreted as careless or dramatic. I wanted to look like what I had spent weeks trying to sell. A burdened mother who made a complicated, emotionally driven mistake under pressure. Translation. I wanted to look sympathetic enough that no one would notice I still thought I had been morally half right. Tessa arrived with Daniel and her attorney. She did not look at me much. Chloe came too, pale and tight-faced, like every bad choice in her life had finally learned to spell her name correctly. Ron sat beside me trying to radiate certainty, but it had curdled by then. He looked like a man who had handed out terrible advice and was offended the universe had taken it seriously. My attorney did what attorneys do with women like me. Stress. Family strain. Intent to repay. Emotional context. No prior criminal record. Poor judgment, not malicious character. The law, unfortunately for me, is allergic to, but I felt justified. The evidence came first. Account access. Transfer sequence. Destination accounts. Timing. Authorization records. The beautiful, merciless architecture of digital proof. Then the voicemails. Deliberately calm. No cruelty. Just truth clean enough to hurt. The judge agreed. He called my actions deliberate. Unlawful. A serious abuse of trust. He said being family did not soften what I had done. It made it worse. Worse, not better. There is something almost insulting about hearing a stranger summarize your moral collapse in one neat sentence, and getting it exactly right. I was ordered to repay everything. Every cent. Deadlines. Conditions. Consequences. I do not remember much after that because all the blood in my body seemed to move into my ears at once. But I remember the feeling. Not just of losing. Of being stripped. In that room under fluorescent lights and legal language, I lost the performance. I was not misunderstood. I was not a mother making a hard call. I was not living in a gray area, only I was brave enough to enter. I was not a victim of impossible circumstances. I was a thief who thought motherhood made her untouchable. That is a humiliating sentence to carry out of court. The appeal went nowhere. Of course it didn't. Reality had already won. We were just arguing over whether it could be bullied into changing its mind. Could not. The money was returned piece by humiliating piece. Savings drained. Arrangements made. Pride swallowed in installments. There is nothing noble about restitution when it comes with court supervision. It is just expensive shame. Tessa got her money back. And then, because life apparently enjoys making examples, she still bought a house not long after. When I heard that, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was perfect. Even after I reached into her life and tried to rearrange it with my bare hands, she still rebuilt fast enough to make me look smaller. That was always her gift. Survival with posture. Chloe got the apartment for a while, but that was never really the point in the end. The apartment became evidence, then embarrassment, then something we barely mentioned because every wall in it had been paid for with the kind of help that rots once exposed to daylight. She never looked at me quite the same after court. Not because she fully turned on me. In some ways that would have been easier. No, what changed was subtler and meaner. She still loved me, I think. But she stopped looking at me like I was safe. Do you know what it does to realize the child you chose too openly no longer feels protected by that choice? Being the favored daughter sounds wonderful right up, until you understand what your mother is willing to do in your name. Ron stayed angry in the lazy, masculine way men do when a bad idea has already detonated, and they would prefer to spend the aftermath criticizing everyone else's reactions. He was furious at Tessa, furious at Daniel, furious at the judge. Furious at how everything gets criminalized now. Not once, not one single time, did he use the word stealing unless I said it first. Marjorie stopped calling as much. Some relatives came back around because families have short memories when the scandal gets old enough and the gossip supply runs low. But things never really reset. Once people know exactly what you are capable of, every future kindness you offer arrives with a shadow behind it. And Tessa? She cut me off. Completely. No holiday texts. No birthday calls. No cautious olive branch. No emergency exceptions. I used to tell people that was because she is cold. That was easier. Now I think it is because she is sane. I kept waiting, in the months after everything ended, for repentance to arrive in some dramatic biblical rush. I thought maybe one day I would wake up sobbing with pure regret, and all the tangled justifications would finally fall away at once like scales from my eyes. That did not happen. Real self-knowledge is much meaner than that. Came slowly. In flashes. While washing dishes. While seeing a mother and daughter laugh in a grocery store. While hearing Chloe hesitate before asking me for help. While passing a bank and feeling absurdly embarrassed by buildings. While realizing that every story I had told about myself still centered me as the injured one. That is when the deeper ugliness surfaced. I did not steal only because Chloe needed help. She did need help. That part was true. But it was not the whole truth, and that is where the rot lived. I also stole because Tessa had become untouchable. Because she had built a life I could not influence. Because she no longer came to me for anything. Because she looked like proof that she had escaped both my mistakes and my reach. Because every success of hers felt, somewhere dark and unmotherly inside me, like a rejection that kept accruing interest. I told myself I was rescuing Chloe. Part of me was punishing Tessa. Not with some cartoon villain speech in my head. Nothing that obvious. It was quieter than that. Purer. More dangerous. I saw what she had built without me and thought, some of that should still belong to this family. Do you hear the entitlement in that sentence? I didn't then. I hear it now. I kept calling it fairness. I kept calling it sacrifice. I kept calling it motherhood. But the real word was entitlement. And entitlement dressed as love is one of the ugliest things a parent can hand a child. I gave that ugliness to both of them. To Chloe, by teaching her that need can become a weapon if a mother is foolish enough to wield it for you. To Tessa, by proving that every wall she built around herself had probably been necessary. People ask, quietly now years later, when enough time has passed to make cruelty sound like curiosity, whether I regret it. Yes, but not in the clean way you want. I do not regret helping Chloe. I regret the poison I used to do it. I do not regret wanting one daughter safe. I regret believing the other daughter's boundaries were just obstacles put there to test my creativity. I regret stealing. I regret lying. I regret the messages. I regret the courtroom. I regret the look on Chloe's face when she realized being chosen by me came with a bill. I regret that the truest thing Tessa ever said about me had to be said in front of a judge. What I regret most, though, is something meaner and smaller than crime. I regret that when I looked at one daughter I saw need. And when I looked at the other I saw inventory. That is the kind of sentence that should make a woman choke. It almost did. People online love asking where someone's mask slipped. That is the wrong question. Masks do not slip all at once. They crack. They soften. They give way under pressure. They fail in seams. By the time the whole thing falls off, the face underneath has usually been showing for years. Mine did not slip the day I transferred the money. It slipped every time I called Tessa selfish for not offering what I had no right to take. Every time I treated Chloe's panic as a moral claim on her sister's labor. Every time I confused being a mother with owning a permanent key to my children's lives. Every time I looked at distance and decided I was owed access just because I once packed lunches and paid bills and survived badly. That is the part one understand now. Parenthood is not a lifetime membership to someone else's future. It is not an ownership stake. It is not a legal loophole. Love does not become moral just because it is maternal. And a daughter's success is not family property no matter how beautifully you dress up the theft. So yes, if you want the headline version, here it is. I stole my daughter's house fund because I believed my other daughter needed it more. And if you want the truer version, the one that took me far too long to say without hiding inside prettier words, here it is. I stole from the daughter who no longer needed me and told myself I was doing it for the daughter who still did. That is the whole disease in one sentence. If you made it this far, tell me this. Was the worst thing I did taking the money? Or was it deciding long before that one daughter's struggle made her worthy of rescue while the other daughter's strength made her available for extraction? Because I used to think the crime began with the transfer. Now I think it began the moment I looked at love and started calling it leverage.